Hi, good morning. I'm Suzanne here at Rogers Gardens, and I'm here to discuss our Tuesday topic for live Instagram and Facebook. It is Japanese maples. We have been selling Japanese maples since probably the beginning of January. We have a huge selection, maybe even the largest selection from nurseries in Southern California of just different varieties. We bring them down from Oregon, and they are just a really beautiful thing to see. They come in with no leaves on them at all. I don't really have any that don't have any leaves on them at this point, but they come in very bare, and they're just, like little skeletons. And then as, the months go on, they start to develop their leaves, and they're so pretty. Such a beautiful look for spring, and they're so great for a shade garden. They add a lot of architectural elements to your garden. And so with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about taking care of a Japanese maple. They are pretty easy. I'll admit they don't really love Southern California, so you have to do a couple of things to make them feel a little bit more at home. Just morning sun would be best for these little beauties. If you can, just maybe sun until 12 or 1 o'clock, and then give them shade in the afternoon. And shade would be a good shade. If you need to, maybe you can put an umbrella up, but definitely don't give them too much sun. The leaves can burn, although the red and the purple varieties, the burgundy varieties, can do a lot better with the sun. You really just want to make sure that they're not getting burned, because eventually most Japanese maples are going to get a little bit of a tip burn. You can try and eradicate that, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. But when you have your Japanese maples, they're growing, you want to put them into an acidic environment. So whether you're putting them in the ground or a pot, and pots, actually you can control that acidity level a little bit better. So I think it's a little bit easier. Put it in a pot with half potting soil and half acid planting mix. So you can buy a smaller bag like this or a larger bag if you're going to put it in the ground, but the key to Japanese maples is keeping them as acidic as possible in that soil. You can use this, you can use peat moss if you want. Peat moss as a mulch, peat moss in your soil, but the acid planting mix has a ton of peat moss in it. It really helps keeping the acid levels high. If you drink coffee, you can put some coffee grounds on them, maybe like once a week, not every day. It will help acidify the soil. And of course, you want to use acid fertilizer. This is really good. Again, in pots, it's going to be easier to control. Our atmosphere and our environment here is super alkaline, so using acid fertilizer on your Japanese maples, your azaleas, your camellias, things like that. But you can use it on almost anything, because our soil is so alkaline that it really doesn't matter, and you can maybe not have to buy too many different kinds of fertilizer. You can use the acid if you're only going to buy one for your Japanese maple, buy the acid fertilizer. So salt tip burn. Usually in July, a lot of Japanese maples will get this little burn on the tips of their leaves. So I'm going to take this one leaf off. So if you have the leaves right here on the tips, it's going to maybe get a little burn. And it's going to look like you're not watering it enough, and you'll be watering it and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe it looks so dry. But actually it is from the salt in our environment. So in the air, in our water, in the soil, there's a lot of salt. And so the best way to alleviate this is to either use distilled water when you're watering your Japanese maples. You can also water really thoroughly. So water them once a week, and just water it slowly and flush all of those salts out of there. That can really help a lot. And also keeping that peat moss and the acid-loving soil there, so that they can really stay as acidic as possible. It's really going to help with this salt tip burn. And if you can't avoid the salt tip burn, don't worry. Eventually the leaves will fall off for the year, and next spring you'll have beautiful leaves again. And you you can try it again and see what works for you to help keep the leaves as nice as they are for as long as you can. That's pretty much it for Japanese maples in terms of just trying to keep them acidic, fertilize them, and then I would, if you can, keep them in a pot or a really large planter or a box just so you can control that. Another thing about Japanese maples that people are either loving, like I do, or intimidated by is to prune them. So get yourself a nice pair of pruners and be ready for that when the leaves of the tree fall off, late November-ish. If we have a really good cold snap, they'll just fall off. That's when you're going to want to prune it. You're going to just kind of cut it to how you want it to look in the spring. Anything that's crossing you would cut, anything that just looks a little out of place, maybe it's going the wrong way, just go ahead and prune it back and it'll be fine. And if it's in a pot, so every maybe 4 or 5 years, if you have it in a smaller pot, you might want to pull it out, kind of rinse off the roots and everything, detangle it as best you can, and then prune back the roots. Give it some fresh soil, again, a half acid planting mix and potting soil mix, and plant it back in the container. That's how you see big, huge Japanese maples in these tiny little pots. It's like a form of bonsai where you prune the roots. It's really important so that they don't start wrapping around the pot and maybe clogging up the drainage. So it's pretty easy and it's fun, and you can just put it on your calendar for 4 or 5 years from now. And it's always kind of like, I do it in February. So usually the beginning of February, just before it starts kind of budding and leafing out, you can prune those roots and it'll help it for the season. So I brought along some friends here. This one here is Crimson Queen. It is just kind of, it's leafing out. It's still very delicate. If you could feel these, they're so soft and just really, really delicate. But this will turn a deep, dark red. They start out kind of green, if you can see them down here, and then they'll eventually turn a nice deep burgundy. I have a really pretty one called Waterfall. And, you can kind of see why it's called that. This stays really low. Japanese maples can have a lot of different forms. Some can get really, really large, like our friend, this coral bark here. Oops, wait, coral bark is back here. This coral bark is also called sangu kaku. I hope I'm saying that right. But coral bark has this beautiful red bark and green leaves. It's one of the largest ones that will grow here in Southern California. It's great for your front yard. Again, you're gonna try and give it some shade if you can. And then the other really large one for Southern California is Bloodgood. So you have your choice of green leaves or burgundy leaves. Bloodgood gets really big. It has a slightly better chance of not getting that leaf tip burn. But again, if you can, give it some shade. We have just these beautiful, beautiful different varieties. The orange, what's it called? Oh, this is Crimson Queen, and this one is called Orangiola. So I guess that's why it does have a little bit more orange. The Crimson Queen, a little bit more crimson. There are a ton more varieties. We have 1 gallon Japanese maples up to little boxes that are 20, I think they're 20 by 20 boxes. So gorgeous, so beautiful, and ready for you to either place in your garden if you want to keep the wooden boxes, and then you will of course root prune them every few years, or you can put them in the ground and they'll be amazing. Prune them how you like. Again, the smaller ones are gonna kind of grow like this and maybe be a little bit more kind of trailing like this. Some of the larger ones, very, very upright, and some, semi-large ones, you can really train to be almost like a cloud across your garden. Just beautiful. And I can't, oh gosh, I almost forgot. One of the most important things about Japanese maples, which is also a really good thing for avocados. So just kind of combining with avocados. A lot of good, delicate trees are going to be like this. They will all benefit from a good, healthy layer of mulch to keep the roots nice and cool on a delicate tree like the Japanese maples or those avocados, because avocados are tropical trees. They don't like to have their roots hot. I don't think a lot of trees really do, but Japanese maples in particular, you're going to help. It's going to filter that water as well. So put 2 to 3 inches of mulch around your Japanese maple. Don't have it touch the stem. You want to pull it apart, just like an inch or 2. And then that mulch will help keep your roots cool. That's very important. So that's about it for our Japanese maples. I suggest you come down, take a look at all these beautiful varieties that we have here. They're all starting to leaf out. It just looks amazing. Do we have any questions, Marissa?
Yes, we have a question. Our blood red Japanese maple has a cracked trunk. Also, the bark has turned white. Any advice?
It sounds like there might be a fungus or a disease. So the best advice is maybe to call an arborist. You can have someone come and take a look at it, see if it's really, really bad. They might give you some methods of treatment for it. You can come into Rogers Gardens, but we don't have a lot of tree treatments here. So I would just suggest maybe calling in an arborist. It's so much better. It's worth the investment if you have a beautiful tree.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions for today.
Okay. All right. Well, I will see you again next week. And Sarah, I believe, will be here on Thursday with her live. And pretty soon we have our spring opening coming up. I want to thank you all if you came to Tomato Mania. That was a fantastic event. Don't forget rogersgardens.com for all your shopping needs. We also have Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and our YouTube channel that you can subscribe to learn all about our plants here. So that's it for today. Bye-bye.